So categorization. So sometimes you got to categorize things. So for example, you could categorize this column with a VLOOKUP. You can categorize it with an if statement, or you can categorize it with an exact lookup. So you could actually do it in an exact lookup. You just say, okay, 0 is error, 1 is single day, 2 is overnight, short, short, long, long, long. But then you got to keep filling in the longs all the way down because you don't know how greater than 5. So the exact lookup doesn't work so well. That's, if you were going to do that, that's what the formula would be. You can also use an if statement. And yeah, it's a much of a muchness. So you can say if it's less than 50, then it's an N. We already know that it's, if we know that it's less than 50, but it's still less than, if it's greater than 50, but less than 60, then we know that it's a D. Academics do this kind of calculation all the time. I'm not sure whether 95% of them do it by hand, but certainly 50%, yeah, no, not so much these days. But certainly 10 years ago, they were doing it all by hand. There's a formula to do this. Why not use the computer? So, so how do you do it with an if statement? So I'll show you how to do it with an if statement. So the if statement is like that. If condition result if true, result if false. For example, if A2 is less than 50, they get an N. And if it's greater than 50, they get more than N. Well, that's okay if you fail, you get an N. Beautiful. But more than N isn't going to satisfy all those people above 50 because they want to know the exact details of their thing. So how do you change that more to N to D, C, B, or A? How do you do that? Well, what you can do is where it says more than N, you can just stick another formula in there. You can stick another if statement in that spot. And that's how you do it. You say, if A2 is less than 50, N, comma, and then in that spot where it used to say more than N, we just stuck a whole other if statement in there. If A2 is less than 60, D. Now, why didn't we say if A2 is greater than or equal to 50? Because the D is between 50 and 60. Why didn't we have to say if A2 is greater than or equal to 60 and less than 50? Because less than 50 is already, we've already said it's less than 50. We know that it didn't fall into the N trap, so it made it to this place, so it's like, hey, we made it past 50, let's see if we can get past 60. And nope, we didn't get past 60, we went into D. Oh, no, we got more than D. And then how do you think we allocate for C? We do the same thing. It's like a recursive little Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole. We keep going down this spot again and again. If it's less than or equal to 70, C more than C, less than or equal to 80, B more than B. What should we put here? What should we put in that spot? A, exactly. We don't need to say if less than 100, A. We know that it's less than 100. That's the only thing we got for marks. So we can just put A there. Now the funny thing about this, that's really quite confusing, is you see this little collection of brackets there. What's going on with that? Well, that's the end of each of those if statements. You need to have a corresponding bracket. So you got an if there, a corresponding bracket, an if there, a corresponding bracket. So you may look at this and think, why don't we do with VLOOKUP? Like VLOOKUP is sort of really straightforward. You've got the data in the lookup table in a little spot over here, and then here we actually have just one little formula, VLOOKUP. I mean, VLOOKUP's an ugly formula, but at least it's just one line. This is a formula that's would give you nightmares. So, but it's at least it's sort of straightforward. You can see what it's doing. And the other thing is you can be complicated here. You can say if A2 is less than 50, and not special consideration. Something like that. You can have other conditions in there, and you don't really want to because it gets too complicated. But just it's another way of doing it. Yeah, and A is the last one. Great, and so you know what to do with it. You know how to do that with a VLOOKUP. And in exact lookup, that's the example in exact lookup. You have to. That's incorrect. Okay, so that's the thing about a PowerPoint. It doesn't calculate your thing for you. Is that the thing you put here is the lower bound of the value. So n would be 0, d would be 50. So that's the lower bound is what you put there. Yeah, so you move everything downward. That's what the lookup looks like. You're looking up whatever's in cell A1, considering if that's column A and column B. The thing that people also get confused about this is that the thing you're looking up, this thing is A1, it's got to match the thing that's in the first column. So if we're looking up numbers, the first column's got to have numbers in it that you're actually comparing against. So the two tricks with an inexact lookup is that, three tricks actually. Three tricks. The first trick is you have to be looking up the same thing in the first column that you're seeking for. The lookup value has to be the same type and quantity. The second thing is the first value is the lower bound, so that if between n and d is 0 and 50, the 0 is there and the 50 is there. No, sorry. Yeah, 0 and 50. Lower bound. And the third thing is this has to be sorted in numeric order or whatever order, so that it can just go along, find the first one. It can't go and look. It doesn't look through the whole table and find it. It doesn't sort it for you. It puts it in there. Yeah, great. Yeah. One other little trick here is that it has to be the same type of thing. So, for example, if you're trying to do VLOOKUP on a date, the thing you've got to be looking up is a date. If you're doing VLOOKUP on a percent, the thing you're VLOOKUPing up is the percent. Percents aren't actually numbers. They're numbers with 2 digits to the left. So that's what would happen there.